The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app.
Download now for free.
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
All right, a lot to get to. Welcome to the program as we will visit with John Adams a little bit later in the show. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. So coming up on the program today, this day in Tennessee sports history, is Nico Iamaleava getting worse? Were we wrong about Josh Heupel? And can the Vols beat Alabama by just running the football? I'll say bank on it, brought to you by Commercial Bank. They can. We'll also have the last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. And, of course, the unfortunate news yesterday, which was heartbreaking in a lot of different ways. Keenan Pili's loss puts more pressure on some Tennessee defensive players. We'll talk about those and who has to step up from a leadership standpoint. I'm sure they have a plan in place, but shortly after Josh Heupel released the news that Keenan was not going to be available for the rest of the year and his career was over because this is his 7th year as granted by the NCAA, Josh Heupel did not care to comment or share or didn't know who will wear the communication headset that allows a defensive player to communicate with the coaching staff. And, of course, on the offensive side, that's a quarterback, I guess almost always. I can't imagine anybody else wearing the headset. But I think there's some flexibility on defense. So I don't think it's necessarily Keenan Pili's replacement, which would be Jeremiah Telander. I've told you a lot about Arian Carter and how he has incredibly high football IQ. So we are off and rolling. Caleb Calhoun. Boy, the news about Keenan Pili was just really heartbreaking. That's 3 seasons in which his season has been over in the first month of the season. Caleb, it happened once at BYU with an ACL injury. It happened once last year with a tricep injury and has happened again. So I just got a really great feel for him at SEC Media Days, and he's been a stand-up guy. Truly, I think one of Tennessee's best transfers that they brought in. But when you talk about Tennessee's 2 best transfers, it's probably Nico and Brew McCoy, and both have battled injuries, which is unfortunate. Caleb, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Dave. And yeah, I agree with everything you said. And you almost like, and I'm sure you've done this before. Now it's football, it's not life, but have you ever somebody who lost somebody close to them and you feel almost guilty moving on with your life? And I feel guilty sometimes when I cover football and a player like Keenan Pili has a season-ending injury that ends his career. It's like, we're talking about this, doing all this, going about it, and this guy just his dreams are crushed. It's like one of the hardest things to have to do, isn't it?
Yes, and I don't know how much NIL money he got, but I hope it's 7 digits. When you pay a guy like Lance Hurd 7 digits, I hope that Keenan Pili benefited from NIL because I really believe, had it not been for all the injuries, that's a standout player in the NFL, but he never was able to. And I go back to the ACL injury at BYU. I mean, you're never as fast with that type of injury. You know, if he's 100% healthy, well, he's not at Tennessee for his 7th year, I don't think. But if he's 100% healthy, he's probably not even at Tennessee for his 6th year. He's probably playing in the NFL. I was that high on his ability had he never had a single injury.
Yeah, I mean, I was too. I think he's that talented.
All right, so let's go ahead and get rolling here as we want to get to how about today's tough question. And I'm afraid that some people are going to be upset with me, but that's never stopped me before. So let's get to today's tough question now. And it's brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Today's tough question. Take a side.
Take a stand.
The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Just lay it out there. It'll be the poll question as well. How concerned are you about Nico Iamaleava? Not at all. Very or lost all faith. I've lost a good bit of faith in him being an elite quarterback. And there are a couple of reasons why that I want to dive into. And I want to get your thoughts. The poll question will go up shortly. But Caleb, you read my column that aired this morning, that published this morning, and already has gotten some negative responses. I just can't help but wonder if he's gotten in his own head, if too much was asked of him, and if he may not process as quickly as we believed. So and Derek says that's a Caleb and Dave question. I don't want it to be true because I think Nico's a fantastic individual by all accounts, off the record conversations, on the record conversations. But doesn't it have to be a topic of conversation after what we've seen the past couple of weeks?
Yes, but let me float this back at you. One of the things when we watched the Citrus Bowl last year when Nico played was we didn't say process things, but we said he reacts very quickly like that. And that was a gigantic difference between him and what we watched all of last year. We'll get to Joe Milton a little bit later, but it didn't seem like he had trouble processing. I will say, I felt that at certain times because it just seems like he's holding the ball too long, waiting for players to get open. But I don't know if that's as much Nico Iamaleava or as much as one, the tackles are terrible. But the other side of this is Josh Heupel seems to not really be fully adjusted yet to this 3-2-6/3-3-5 hybrid that teams are running against his offense. And I think he can figure out what to do. I think Josh Heupel, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think Josh Heupel thought coming out of the bye week, he wasn't going to see that anymore because Arkansas never ran it. Florida never ran it, but they both decided to run it against Tennessee. And I think so now, the truth is he needs another bye week to start kind of really just coming up schematically with something to address it. I don't think he's ever bothered to address this because he didn't think he'd see it as much as he's seeing it. And I think it's affecting Nico.
Well, let me say something. I didn't think Florida ran it nearly as much as Arkansas and Oklahoma, to my surprise. I thought that they would. My concern,
and there were more deep shots there, by the way, against Florida because of that.
Right.
Nico just didn't hit him.
And let me tell you, I have lost all faith in a quarterback before, and it doesn't mean they haven't come back and done a great job. I would specifically point out, may I give you an Uncle Dave moment?
Let's go, Uncle Dave.
Yeah. Jonathan Crompton, his last year, the storyline was basically every week he struggles, he's holding Tennessee back. So I wanted to change the narrative, and I wanted to sit in the stands, which I'd never done, and my editors thought was insane, and listen to the reaction that he got from fans. I thought it was a pretty good idea. Right, Caleb? So I sat out in the stands, and that was the game against Georgia where he lit it up. So at that point, Lane Kiffin showed that Jonathan Crompton could be a very good quarterback. And in retrospect, it was all that went on around him that undermined his ability to perform at a high level. So, Caleb, my mind can be changed. But right now, you like to say power rankings are based off a neutral site. Caleb, I would say right now, if I had to bet that he'll be elite one day or he'll just be very good, I would have to go very good. And trust me, part of this is me saying that I'm wrong, and I don't like to do that a lot. And Caleb, part of this is saying that you're wrong, which I certainly didn't think was the case in the first couple of games of the season and in the preseason when we were talking about Heisman Trophy odds. By the way, we're going to get to, do we owe Joe Milton an apology shortly, but the fact that I've lost faith in Nico Iamaleava has a lot to do with the pressure that was put on him by NIL and the pressure that was put on him in recruiting. Now, this has to ultimately be on Josh Heupel because he doesn't have the offensive line to protect him. And Josh Heupel, let's be real honest, he had his pick of the litter because he had a $2 million a year contract in his back pocket. So he picked Nico, right? I mean, this is not recruiting. Usually the kid chooses. But in this particular case, Tennessee put the full court press on Nico, not Arch Manning, and got Nico. So they got their guy. But I'm not sure their guy is either ready or an elite player anytime soon. Caleb?
All right, so I'm going to push back this way. Dave, go back and watch the Florida game a little bit. And I'm sure you have. I have to, because you're right. We bring up the defensive schemes. Nico Iamaleava in that game was 16 of 26 for 169 yards, did have a pick, but had no touchdowns. Okay. There were, and someone broke this down on Twitter. I forget the name, but I'm sorry, guys. I really wish I could give them credit, but I can just tell you the story of it. We counted four specific deep shots that were there. That Nico made the right throw. He made the right read. He just missed them for whatever reason. Missed Chris Brazel on one, missed Chaz Nimrod on one, and missed Squirrel White on one. Actually, missed Chaz Nimrod on two. Now, here's why that's important. We're talking about Nico processing and things like that. If Nico Iamaleava hits those deep shots when they're there, which is his unique skill, I don't think even you have any questions about his skill to throw the deep ball accurately, right? We know he can do that. That's not a processing thing. That's an accuracy on the deep ball thing, right?
Well, yeah. I mean that to me was the given, right?
Well, here's why it's important. If he hits those, his stat line is all of a sudden 20 of 26 for probably 300 and something yards and 4 touchdowns. And me and you are sitting here like he had a breakout game. And what I'm saying is, I don't think he missed those deep shots, Dave, because he's not processing well. Because not processing well would imply that he didn't throw it on time. He didn't make the right read. No, he's missing those deep shots because he's feeling the heat because the tackles are missing their blocks. And so he's getting rid of the ball way more quickly than he should. And he's seeing ghosts, as you brought up over the weekend. So the honest truth is, Nico, again, it's not about processing. It's about he's got to hit those deep shots when they're there. And if he does, he's got he's got Heisman stat lines going.
Okay, the squirrel miss was brutal. You're right, Puka. And a couple of people have posted in there that Tennessee needs to roll him out. Well, here's the problem. You can't roll him out because it puts, as often as you would like, because it puts your offensive tackles in a bind. Timothy, we thank you as you super chat for young Quincy Calhoun's college fund. When do we start asking for some of that NIL back from Nico receivers and offensive line? Well, that to me is the issue, Caleb, is that NIL immediately comes up when you talk about Nico. So you immediately say, is he worth what he's getting paid? If NIL was around, let me ask you this question. Would we be nearly as upset? Would Tennessee's fan base be nearly as upset with Nico as they are now? Today's tough question brought to you by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? Banks & Jones, T. Scott Jones, banksandjones.com. All right, so how concerned are you about Nico Iamaleava? Not at all. 58%, Barry, 36%. Lost all faith, honestly, 6%. So, Caleb, get back to the question. If it wasn't for NIL, would anybody truly be disappointed in a redshirt freshman that has managed to go 5-1 and has overcome injuries at receiver and offensive tackle? I mean, if this is a guy that just came in and he's just another quarterback like back in the day, are we even having this discussion? Did that unfairly raise expectations?
No, I think the expectations would actually be very similar because I think of the hype behind Nico Iamaleava. And a quarterback with that level of hype in this era of college football, with Josh Heupel's offense, you expect redshirt freshmen to be able to ball out. So I don't even think NIL is having as much of an impact on that as people might think. The reason it's hard for Tennessee is because, honestly, among freshmen or redshirt freshman quarterbacks at Tennessee, the other ones, even the ones Tennessee fans don't like, were a lot better as freshmen. The only one who was really, really, really bad as a true freshman or redshirt freshman was Josh Dobbs. But he wasn't supposed to start that year. He got thrown in there because Justin Worley was hurt and then Nathan Peterman was terrible. But outside of that, I mean, everybody fell in love with Tyler Bray as a freshman. Everybody fell in love with Casey Clausen as a freshman. Everybody fell in love with Eric Ainge as a freshman. Everybody fell in love with Peyton Manning as a freshman. So those guys all outperformed what Nico has done to this point. So I don't think it's the NIL. I think people are holding up. I think maybe NIL's people may be giving Nico more of a leash because of NIL, because they're thinking in their head, well, man, we really need him to work out. So, it can't be his fault. It's got to be the fault of other people. I'm doing that because I think it is actually the case. Like I said, Dave, he's 16 of 26 and he missed 4 deep shots. That's not processing. If he hits those 4 deep shots, he's 20 of 26. And he can hit those deep shots.
Okay. So I specifically want to address what I said with the processing. You would have to agree there were times where it looks like the stage was too big, especially when he's taken off to run. It looked like to me there were times in which he just didn't seem comfortable, Caleb.
I think he's not comfortable doing it because I think that I just think he runs awkwardly. I mean, I think he runs kind of awkwardly, but on top of that, I think that one of the reasons he's not comfortable doing it is because you said it. He's seeing ghost. He's rattled because he's getting hit every time he gets rid of the ball. And on top of that, Josh Heupel has to has to keep a running back or a tight end back just to keep him protected. And by the way, the other running back that's not Dylan Sampson is Deshaun Bishop, who is too small to pick up pass pro. So when Lance Hurd does miss a block, which is all the time, Deshaun Bishop, if he's in there, has to pick it up. What is Nico supposed to do? Of course he's going to see ghosts. He knows how bad that pass pro is at that point. And again, but I'm not ranking Deshaun Bishop over the coals the way I am Lance Hurd. When Lance Hurd's actually meant to block, Deshaun Bishop's too small. He's a walk-on. But it is what it is. And so, of course, if you're Nico, you're thinking about that now every time you throw the ball. I mean, he was strip sacked twice against Oklahoma. Neither were his fault. He threw an interception against NC State because a play got blown up. That was not his fault. Then against Arkansas, he kept getting rocked. I mean, at some point, very few quarterbacks can handle the level of abuse that he's taken as a redshirt freshman to this point. And, we talk about Peyton Manning being so small as a redshirt freshman or true freshman. Everybody talks about that. Dave, you remember those offensive linemen back then, Jason Lehman and those guys. Peyton Manning had a lot better protection than Nico Iamaleava is getting. I said that I do believe that freshmen can ball out their first year redshirt freshmen. But if they are, that is the time where offensive line matters. Now, if you're a senior, maybe I'd say you got to overcome it. But as a freshman, you got to have protection. And I thought he was going to have better protection than he's had. He's had horrible protection.
All right, so the poll question, NIL has raised expectations unfairly for Nico. No, I still had high expectations, 60%, so they agree with you. Yes, money counts, 39%. Now, does Dave owe Joe Milton an apology? Yes, Dave is dumb. No, Joe is still a bad quarterback. How about that? And it'll be What the H? And it's brought to you by Double D Piping. I tell you what, when it comes to fire suppression and fire protection, it is Double D Piping. Oh, I think I'm going to give Joe Milton an apology. What the H?
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
thank Timothy again for contributing to Quincy Calhoun's college fund. You're welcome to do so with Super Chat. Then Max Protect all the time and do more timing routes, less option routes. Bingo, bango. I'm with you there. But let's get to Joe Milton. Joe Milton did not have Alex Golesh last year. Joe Milton had a very thin tight end room last year. They were not able to even go 12 personnel because they just had 2 tight ends that could play. Joe Milton missed an awful lot of passes, but in retrospect, do we owe Joe Milton an apology? And the question is on our YouTube page. Does Dave owe Joe Milton an apology? Yes, Dave is dumb. No, Joe is a bad quarterback. 57%, 58% now say Joe is still a bad quarterback, but 40% of our audience thinks I'm dumb. So there you go.
What if both are true? No, I'm kidding, Dave. I'm joking.
Very possible.
I'm going to be very, very, very. I'm not going to. Okay, maybe Joe is a bad quarterback. I was never going to call him a bad quarterback. I just thought he wasn't a fit for Heupel's system. We don't know Joe Milton apology. And I'll tell you why. Well, a few things. One, I mean, experience does matter. Joe Milton, that was his 3rd year in the system last year. I mean, we can say that. I felt he did get a little bit more of a bad rap because the offensive line, because players were so banged up last year too. But it was his 3rd year in the system. He should have been more experienced. And also Joe Milton, there were a lot more opportunities for Joe Milton to make plays that were missed. I mean, again, outside of that one pass over the middle late in regulation, Dave, that Nico threw that was just 100 miles an hour that looked like a Joe Milton throw. That's the first time we saw Nico make that type of throw, right?
Yes.
Joe Milton made that on the regular last year, right? I mean, when the middle of the field was just wide open and he would make a back shoulder throw at 300 miles an hour and it hit the back shoulder, bounce off the receiver. And then you'd have all those old school guys come and say, if you can touch it, you can catch it. And I'm like, no, if it's a back shoulder throw at 300 miles an hour when the receiver's running the opposite way, they're not going to be able to catch that ball. Okay. That's the first time.
But what's worse, Caleb, the fact that they learned that they couldn't trust Joe Milton to throw that ball because it would put it in jeopardy, or the fact that they can't trust Nico to throw that ball anymore because he's thrown 2 interceptions over the middle. And I think that's why Tennessee's offense is so horizontal now and vertical, but doesn't attack the middle of the field.
Those interceptions are because, again, he's a redshirt freshman, and every now and then is going to get confused by when a linebacker, he sees blitz and they drop back in coverage and it throws him off. He's also thrown quite a few touchdown passes over the middle this year, in case you haven't noticed. And let me ask you that. Let's just take this very simple. The touchdown pass to Dante Thornton against Oklahoma.
Okay.
How many times does Joe Milton complete that pass out of 10?
He might complete it a good number out of 10, but he doesn't lead him to the end zone, so to speak. I mean, that was a perfectly thrown ball. I don't think many guys throw that ball. I mean, you would include Aaron Rodgers. I don't think many guys throw that ball any better.
Yes. So Nico has the arm and the touch on the ball. He is seeing ghosts. He's rattled. I won't deny that he's rattled. And you can say that's a concern about his mentality long-term, and his decision-making is questionable. But Joe Milton's decision-making was questionable too. And Joe Milton was a heck of a lot older than Nico was. And I don't think Joe Milton necessarily got rattled, but we know this. One, Joe was more hesitant to run the ball than Nico was. Can we say that? Is that fair to bring up? Because
yes.
Yeah, Nico at least will run it, even if he looks so lanky and awkward when he does it. If Joe Milton was willing to run the ball a lot more, Dave, we'd be talking Joe Milton as an all-SEC quarterback last year. And I think Tennessee probably wins at least 2 more games. And so that's one big difference. Nico, again, I don't think we owe Joe Milton an apology in comparison to Nico. Now, we owe Joe Milton an apology in the sense of, I did think that there were a lot of things that went wrong with the offense last year. I think there were just key injuries in the wrong spots that we would never ask Joe Milton to overcome. And maybe we should be asking Nico to overcome it because he's the $2 million man every year. But I do think as a redshirt freshman, there are deep-seated issues with this offensive unit right now that I wouldn't expect him to be able to overcome. Now, I mean, I'll tell you guys straight up where I was wrong. I think Hendon Hooker would have overcome this stuff easily. I think it's safe to say that if you give Hendon Hooker the keys to this offense, he's going to ball out, right? One, One reason is leadership. Dave, let's be honest. Lance Hurd and John Campbell would play better with Hendon Hooker because they'd be scared to not perform, wouldn't they?
Probably be something to that. I'll give you that. I will also say that Hendon Hooker may have set the bar too high, which may be another reason that we, or me, owe Joe Milton an apology, which I'll address after a quick message from Double D Piping.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
Okay, I'm not going to give Joe Milton an apology, but I am going to give Tennessee's fans an apology because I thought, and we'll discuss this later with John Adams, did we overestimate Josh Heupel? I thought that Josh Heupel would be able to take a guy in Joe Milton that had all the tools and turn him into a great quarterback. Not only did I think that Josh Heupel was a great offensive mind, I thought he was going to be a great quarterback coach. Those are two very distinct things, correct, Caleb?
Yes, I totally agree.
Yes. So teaching fundamentals and how to deliver the ball on a platform, as he likes to say, it never happened with Joe Milton, whose feet never seemed certain, and it hasn't happened to this point with Nico. So I'll give you an apology, but my apology is I may have overestimated Josh Heupel. Now, that doesn't mean he can't win a championship, but I had him as a lock to win a national title at some point at Tennessee. My confidence is shaken, Caleb, as I think that most people's should be.
Yeah, I mean,
and if you all out disagree with me and you think this is a bump in the road, Caleb, tell me. I mean,
well, I was going to save this for the John topic later, but I'll just say ahead of time, I think Heupel's ego is getting in his own way. That's what I'll say for now, is I think Heupel thinks way too highly of himself and his ability. So I think that's kind of the issue. I think right now I don't want to sound all Jimbo Fisher when he used to be like, well, players there just didn't execute and just throw his players under the bus all the time. But honestly, Dave, with Nico, that was the case on Saturday. I mean, I'm just going to share this comment. Adam brings up a great point. Nimrod dropped the pass across the middle, got tripped up on one of the best deep balls of the season. Brazel let himself get pushed out of bounds on a perfect throw by Nico. I know he was carried, but Dave, you kind of got to fight to drag that foot. Remember that one on the catch?
Yeah, I'm going to go bad throw in that one. I think you've got to put it in the field of play.
I think you put it in the field of play. You leave Brazel open to get rocked, and I think Nico knew that. So
okay, we'll have to agree to disagree on that. I thought that was a bad ball. And the Nimrod drop, if he completes that, it never goes to overtime, right? And we're having a totally different discussion.
Yes, and then there was also, I still maintain that Squirrel White slowed on that route because he misjudged the ball. And also, even if he didn't slow on the route, Dave, Nico practiced all season with a much faster Squirrel White than the Squirrel White we're seeing now, who's banged up. So don't you think he maybe estimated and timed Squirrel White maybe being a little bit faster to get to the ball because of what he's used to, and Squirrel White being banged up, is what messed up that deep throw?
Well, it is a shoulder injury. I mean, it's not like it's a knee injury.
Well, I mean, maybe that's why he couldn't stretch out to grab the ball. I mean, what I'm saying is that Squirrel White, it looked like he slowed. He did not look like Squirrel White on that run to catch the ball. Either he slowed up on purpose or he was too banged up to make the run. But I thought Nico put it where you would expect to put it with Squirrel White, running down the middle of the field.
Okay, does Dave owe Joe Milton an apology? Yes, Dave is dumb. No, Joe is still a bad quarterback. Darth Ball says, guys, we are 5-1 with a strong chance to beat Bama and Florida and make a run at the playoffs on the back of a redshirt freshman quarterback and a redshirt freshman tackle that has less game experience than the quarterback. We are good. Go Vols. At the end of the day, I agree with all of that. But think you would agree, Caleb, that if Nico's play doesn't elevate, Tennessee's not going to play whoever's fault it is, whether it's Heupel, whether it's not playing Ethan Davis anymore, whether it's injuries at receiver, whatever the case is. He's 8th in the SEC right now in quarterback ranking. If that doesn't improve, Tennessee's not going to make the college football playoff. Agree or disagree?
Totally agree. That's absolutely got to improve. And, we still don't know how the college football playoff selection committee is going to operate on here. I never liked the whole, you just got to determine the best teams. I'm like, the actual outcomes of the game have to count for something, right? Like you're trying to win the game. But I don't know if they're going to hold it against Tennessee. Just the way they're winning and who they're beating. And so you're right. Nico's really got to step it up. And look, this is a chance. Look, one of the other reasons to maybe be a little bit more encouraged, Dave, is that, look, the college football is looking more and more like the NFL. And I don't just mean the SEC, because everyone's like, the SEC beats up on each other. No, all of college football Power 5 is beating up on each other right now because of the era of the transfer portal and NIL. And so the gap is so much narrower between teams than it used to be just 5 years ago.
I agree. And I think the ability to address needs in the transfer portal and the ability to pay players to stay has benefited the middle class of the Power 5 and to some extent the lower class of the Power 5. Good gravy. Indiana and Vanderbilt are doing things. Really, this is happening. You really have no excuse as a head coach not to do pretty good things by your second or third year with the current standing. Now, I think things might change when the colleges bring it in-house as far as the spending. But until then, for instance, if I'm Southern California, I am so regretful of the contract I gave Lincoln Riley. I can't even put it into words. This is, at least with Jimbo Fisher, he had a championship. Now you're locked into this contract with Lincoln Riley for, I think, $70 million for the next 7 years. Caleb, so there are certainly worse places to be a fan than Tennessee, where I would say all in all, it's been a B+ year. An A+ takes an undefeated record. Yes, no,
I absolutely agree. And look, we're like, Tennessee is one fluke play from being undefeated, or maybe one play from being undefeated. They are running into the punter away from being undefeated right now. Just let that sink in. They're running into the punter away from being undefeated.
Okay. Let's see where Nico stands on this. I don't think he appreciates it. All right, so stay tuned. He's Caleb Calhoun. What's that?
Nico Iamaleava blocked you?
Yeah, that's probably the latest column. And I hope I'm wrong, but I just see a guy that's uncertain. And I was wrong about Jonathan Crumpton, and he ended up having a great second half of his senior season.
If it makes you feel better, I'm blocked by Josh Dobbs and Jared Garantano. So, it's okay.
How do you get blocked by Josh Dobbs? He's the nicest guy in the world. How do I get blocked by Nico? Nico's incredible.
Sometimes they block people, not because they hate people, but I do know this. Some people do it. I don't think they know how to mute, and I think they just need to be able to tune out things, because they know that if they go down the Twitter rabbit hole, they'll just, be at it all night.
I'll tell you what, if I were him, I would get a flip phone, just like Stetson Bennett did at Georgia. It seemed absurd at the time, but the criticism across the board is going to continue for him because the expectations were unfairly high, in my opinion. Whether that's NIL or too much recruiting coverage or whatever the case may be, I think the expectations were way too high. Now, he could live up to that. Everything could be good, but Tennessee certainly has to overcome injuries at wide receiver and a very important injury on defense that we'll discuss next. Who steps up for Keenan Pili, Tennessee's middle linebacker that heartbreakingly is out another season and his college career is over? I'm going to give you a couple of names that are obvious and then a couple of names that you might not have thought of as, again, heartbreaking for Keenan Pili. Hit the like and subscribe button. Please hit that like button. Please subscribe and make sure that you have your notifications on. Ring that bell. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, the show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. 2 minutes off the hook sports.
I've been in business actually 19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Experience quality and value in this pre-owned 2024 Ford Maverick XLT all-wheel drive, $31,990. 23 Ford Expedition 4x4 Limited, $66,590. 2023 Ford F-150 XLT Super Crew 4x4, $47,995. Local you trust, pre-owned vehicles you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
Why Banks & Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. banksandjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show.
Who?
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Oh, Adam, you cracked me up. Nico thought Uncle Dave was Herbert from Family Guy.
Hey there, Busly Arms.
Yeah, I know. I do that. I do 2 impressions that are opposite end of the spectrum really well. It's Sean Connery and Herbert from Family Guy. Get your fatter back here. So yeah, that's a pretty good one. And if you haven't seen the Family Guy version of Star Wars, you're missing out.
So great.
So great. So great. All right. Does Dave owe Joe Milton an apology? Yes, Dave is dumb, 28%. No, Joe is still a bad quarterback, 72%. So thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm a little more uncertain than I was before after what I've seen this year, that it could be other issues. All right. This day in Tennessee sports history, Caleb, is what?
On this day, 41 years ago, Tennessee, for the second straight season, upset Alabama. It was the first year of Alabama football. By the way, this is why this is relevant. It was Alabama's first year without Bear Bryant, just like this is Alabama's first year without Nick Saban. And Tennessee beat Alabama 41-34 thanks to 3 touchdown passes from Alan Cockrell and a 66-yard touchdown run from Johnny Jones to close things out. I almost said Johnny Cochran. I don't know why, but from Johnny Jones to close things out and win the game 41-34. They won that game at Birmingham. Alabama was number 11 at the time, and they were led by a brilliant man named Ray Perkins.
Did I ever tell you that Johnny Jones was my first favorite football player?
Because but that makes sense. But
yeah, he was in the 80s. And if you remember, he had I think it was like a lower back pad that would flop around and stuff. And he looked like he'd just thrown on his clothes and his uniform right before he went out in the game. And I thought he was a great player. And my first favorite basketball player for Tennessee was the Wizard, Tony White. So I loved him as well. But Johnny Jones, who I've never met, one of the few Vols that I've talked about that I haven't met, always will hold a soft spot in my heart. And that is this day in Tennessee sports history.
And I would just like to point out, Alabama fired Ray Perkins after a 10-3 season and top 10 finish so they could go and hire Bill Curry, who, they...
to hire, if you think about it, to hire the two best coaches in the history of college football is something. But if you line up the dodo birds that Alabama hired aside from them, it almost offsets it, does it not?
Mike DeBose is my favorite. He is one of the worst coaches ever hired. Like Mike Shula, that was a desperation move because, they had to hire somebody because Mike Price apparently couldn't keep it in his pants.
How is Mike Price?
Because Mike Price,
he never even coached a game.
Yes, but on its face, that was a good hire. They wanted an offensive mind to inject some splash into the program.
Yeah, he injected some splash, all right. Yeah, with a prostitute and a golf outing. I mean, who, for real? You have a big, for those that don't know, look it up, Mike Price. For those that don't know, he has a huge golf outing for his boosters. And he thinks that's the perfect time to bring a prostitute back to his room that, no joke, yells "Roll Tide" during their antics. And then he wakes up and leaves to go play golf. I guess he didn't leave her a Dear John note, which I didn't know you're supposed to with prostitutes. That's a little outside of my realm of expertise. But she decides to call the front desk and order one of everything on the room service menu. And that's how he got busted, because they called Mike Price and they're like, somebody in your room ordered one of everything. Yes. And that's how it all went down. All right. So let's turn our attention to Four Downs. Four Downs today is brought to you by Medicare Misty as we talk about who can fill the void left by Keenan Pili. Again, God bless him. It's absolutely terrible that he's missed his third basically full season in college, and his college career is over. I hope he gets a shot in the NFL. Listen, I'm okay with the Dallas Cowboys spending a top 3 round draft pick on him right now.
4 downs, 4 questions, 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay. So our poll question is this. My favorite team to beat is Bama or Florida. Bama, 63% of the vote. Florida, 7% of the vote. But I'm going to change that up a little bit because I'm going to throw you some options, Caleb, of players that could fill in for Keenan Pili from a leadership and skill standpoint. I'm just going to go ahead and tell you there's not one. Okay. But I'm going to throw some names at you and get your thoughts on them. So, Cooper, what should people do first?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
All right, Caleb, let me throw this name at you.
Coop here. First down.
Jeremiah Thielander.
And you want me to say if he can fulfill the void left by Keenan Pili?
Who most fills the void?
Oh, yeah, Jeremiah Thielander. Yeah, he absolutely is the one who most fills the void. He's the most important player. I know you might. Spoiler, a teaser. Hookers love teases, so but Dave is going. Dave is going to disagree with me on this, but it's Jeremiah Thielander.
Okay, Jeremiah Thielander will be one we'll vote on, but let me get your thoughts on what would be my selection. Coop, what down?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Arian Carter. I know they don't play the exact same position, but I think it's worth noting that Tennessee, as Coach Josh Heupel yesterday said that he is not 100% sure who's going to wear the helmet communication. If it was just Jeremiah Thielander from a leadership standpoint, he would have said it's Thielander. But Arian Carter has an incredible football mind, I've been told. But I'm saying I believe Carter has a bigger impact in Pili's absence than Thielander.
You think Carter has a bigger impact in Thiele's absence than Thielander? I think more pressure's on Arian Carter to make a lot of plays, but I think that was there anyway. And I think Arian Carter can't do that unless the middle linebacker spot is held down properly. And that's why I think the pressure is on T-Lander more than Arian Carter.
All right. What down is it, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Okay. Now, this is reaching a little bit because I think it's T-Lander or Carter, right? I mean, it's one of the two. Okay. So I'm going to say the Vols safeties because Pili was a guy that played incredibly well from tackle to tackle, but also had the speed to get sideline to sideline. So ultimately, that's going to fall on someone just from an X's and O's standpoint. And I think that when T-Lander is out of position, if that's the case, then I think that would be up to Tennessee safeties to fill the void. And I do think there was a big void there. And if you watch the post-game show, The Last Look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, you heard this. But I think there was a big void left there when T-Lander was in the game for a short amount of time. You and I disagree on that a little bit, but your thoughts on Tennessee's safeties. Now, this is purely an X's and O's thing. This is not a leadership. I think Arian Carter's a leader and a great player. But as far as X's and O's, how important is it for the safeties not to bust?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, they gave up a 3rd and 18 touchdown specifically because they busted. And by the way, Andre Turntine had his worst game of his life on Saturday against Florida. And I mean, it's the one reason you can maybe say if Graham Mertz is in the game, Tennessee may lose that game because Andre Turntine was out of position so often. Will Brooks got out of position one time, and it was on that 3rd and 18. Andre Turntine did it all game. And the only thing that saved them, and here's why that's inexcusable, Dave. I thought about this over the weekend coming into the day. You know, when you have really good lockdown corners, you realize that safeties have a lot more leeway to make big plays whenever they want.
Amen. 1998 is a prime example. Who were the superstars of that defense? It was arguably Fred White and Deion Grant. Why? Because Dwayne Goodrich could take away a receiver. He matched up on Peter Warwick in the Fiesta Bowl and absolutely shut him down.
Yes, and if what happened didn't happen, I think Dwayne Goodrich could have been the heir apparent to Deion in Dallas, honestly.
Well, that's what he was drafted to do. I don't know that Deion's to me, we use this term too much, once in a generational type of talent.
Yes, but
he was drafted to be that guy. He would have, I'll say this, I think Dwayne Goodrich at the very least would have been a 3-time all-pro player. And I'm not talking about Pro Bowl because that basically gets down to Jason Kelsey turned it down 18 times. And, so I'm talking all-pro. I think at the very least, Dwayne Goodrich would have been a 2 or 3-time all-pro. I think at the top end, he would have been a Hall of Fame player.
1,000% agree. I mean, I think he's that good. And by the way, after Dwayne Goodrich in the 2000s, Tennessee had 2 lockdown corners in Rashad Baker and Jabari Greer, right? What did that do? That turned Jabril Wilson into a superstar. So the fact that these safeties, because guess what, guys? Tennessee has lockdown corners again. They have one of the most special cornerbacks in school history in Jermon McCoy, and Ricky Gibson's a very good number 2 cornerback. For Will Brooks and Andre Turntine to not be able to be big playmakers is a red flag. Now, maybe the pressure's on Boo Carter because Boo Carter's starting to emerge as a player. I mean, that is the most silver lining of silver linings on Saturday's game against Florida that nobody's talking about. Is how
I agree. I agree. And I talked to Fred White, and he said, I shared this quote with you. Dale Carter, Eric Berry comparisons.
Boo Carter, you mean?
Oh, what?
You said Dale Carter. Oh, you mean you're comparing Boo Carter to Dale Carter?
Well, Fred did. I didn't. I wouldn't go that far.
Well, you said Dale Carter.
Right. He compared Boo to Dale Carter and Eric Berry.
Oh, okay. Well, he compared them to both of them. Okay.
He didn't say better. He just said that kind of impactful playmaker. My biggest concern with Boo is just his lack of maturity. So I'm going to give you one on 4th down that will surprise you. Okay. But that's what we do. We work hard at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting, 4 downs. And it's all about who replaces Keenan Pili, brought to you by Medicare Misty, licensed in over 40 states. And don't forget this, that there's no charge for services.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
All SEC Center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Hit like if you believe James Pierce is one heck of a leader. The fact that James Pierce was only used in 10 plays against Chattanooga, when that's a game in which he could ring up 3 sacks and be the college football player of the week and all that stuff, and he doesn't care, and he didn't care, and it was obvious he didn't care after Tennessee beat Florida. So James Pierce is not a rah-rah guy. I don't think he's going to get in anybody's face. But the fact that he's been willing to play the hand that's been dealt to him, which is not a bad hand, and still be engaged, Caleb, is a big, big deal.
I love James Pierce more than I did even before the season started. And you know what the most impressive thing about him is? And you're right, he will be willing to step up. But here's what's so impressive about James Pierce. He hasn't lost his edge at all, despite the fact that he just can't get those stats because teams are running away from him and things like that. You notice he is still playing every single snap with his hair on fire. And
completely agree.
Guys, y'all realize how hard that is to do when you're a defensive end and teams are doing everything they can to neutralize you and you can't get the stats you want? Do you realize how hard psychologically that is to do? Like tackles, it's one thing because nose tackles and defensive tackles, they accept that, right? Their only job is to just win the battle in front of them and knock the offensive lineman back. But like edge rushers are there to rack up stats for themselves, for their, accolades, for their draft stock. And James Pierce isn't doing that, but he's still playing with his hair on fire. I mean, he's becoming very fast one of my favorite players to ever play at Tennessee because of his mentality. I love players like that.
I think that's wise. Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Hemp House Chat with 2Ts.com. Use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. HOOK for 10% off. The stat of the day, Caleb, is what?
All right. I am going to...
Oh, my goodness. I can already tell he's gone deep into this one.
Oh, I'm going very deep into this one because everybody's hating on Nico Iamaleava. We're asking all these questions about Nico Iamaleava. What's wrong with him? What's going on? Well, I'm going to point out that as of right now, among freshman quarterbacks who start at Tennessee, Nico leads all of them in yards per attempt, completion percentage, quarterback rating, and he's on track to have the record for the most passing yards in a season by a freshman quarterback. He's second only to Tyler Bray in yards per game at 203 to 205. By the way, Tyler Bray came in halfway through the season and played the easiest back end of a schedule ever to get those stats. And he's second only to Casey Clausen as a freshman in touchdown to interception ratio at 15-6 for Clausen, 7-3 for Nico. But what I'm trying to, that's very close because if you double that, it's 14-6 for Nico, 15-6 for Clausen. So it's basically a wash.
Look at the math on Caleb.
Hey now. The point I'm trying to make is efficient-wise, stats-wise, Nico is the greatest freshman to ever start at quarterback for Tennessee. And really, it's not close.
The greatest freshman to ever start for Tennessee.
He's having the greatest freshman season. He's having the greatest season ever for a freshman quarterback at Tennessee. And it's really not close.
Okay, I'm going to have to consume that a little bit more.
And by the way, let me just name the freshmen who have all started at Tennessee, just so we can get this out here, okay? Because there's been quite a few over the years. And I'm talking about Alan Cockrell was the first, Dave, and then Peyton Manning, and then Casey Clausen, and then Brent Schaefer, and then Eric Ainge, and then Tyler Bray, and then Nathan Peterman, and then Josh Dobbs, and then Jaron Garantano, and then Will McBride, and then Harrison Bailey. And yes, and Brian Maurer in between them. And Nico is more efficient and better than all of them statistically their freshman year.
All right, pretty good. Let's drop this in the chat. Peak IV Hydration in South Knoxville and Sevierville. You can stop by or you can order the patches that'll give you energy or hydrate you. peakivhydration.com, peakivhydration.com. They bring you Jacob Warren each and every Monday, and he visited with us yesterday, so that was fantastic. So Caleb, my question for you is with Nico, you say is the best freshman quarterback ever. Let's not forget that Casey Clausen started his first game against Alabama. Let's not forget that Peyton Manning was thrown in there at a soaking wet 153 pounds. He is a freshman, but he's a redshirt freshman. So how much do you factor that in?
I mean, I factor that in some, but there have been other redshirt freshmen start for Tennessee. But what I will also say with Peyton Manning and Casey Clausen, you say he was thrown in at Alabama. Dave, it was not this Alabama. It was Mike DeBose Alabama, a 3-8 team that didn't have Sean Alexander. Casey Clausen had a very, very easy road when he was thrown. He was thrown in when Tennessee was 2-3. Tennessee had already played the 4 best teams they were going to play on their schedule when he was thrown in. Because the 4 best teams, by the way, Florida, Georgia, LSU, and Southern Miss were the 4 best teams on their schedule that year in the regular season. They had already played all 4 when Casey was thrown in, and he took advantage of a very easy back-end schedule. Peyton Manning was thrown in a much more difficult situation, to be fair, because he was thrown in against Washington State, the number 1 defense in the nation. But Tennessee had already played UCLA, they had already played Florida, and they had already played Georgia. So they had already played a brutal slate. Washington State was a little bit different. They were tough. But Peyton Manning also was behind one of the best offensive lines in Tennessee history. And by the way, a close second was that Clausen offensive line. And Clausen had Travis Henry to hand the ball off to. Peyton had James Stewart and Aaron Hayden and Mose Phillips to hand the ball off to. Nico just has Dylan Sampson, who's amazing. He's on those guys' level. But Clausen had multiple options. I'm sorry. Clausen and Peyton had much more help around them when they were thrown in as freshmen than Nico Iamaleava does right now. Now, what you can say is Nico had a more friendly offensive system to him than Clausen and Manning had.
Agreed. Set the poll question. What's more surprising, Nico's struggles or Sampson's excellence? Brought to you by Quality Tire Pros. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands of tires, full service automotive, brakes, alignments, oil changes, and more. All work is covered by a nationwide warranty. Tell Bo that Dave and Off the Hook Sports said, hello, qualitytirepros.com, qualitytirepros.com. And I do want to remind everyone that we would love for you to be a member of Hooker's Corner. And if you are a paid member for just $9.98 a month, you will get increased recruiting coverage. You will also get a monthly, you'll be eligible to win weekly prizes like t-shirts and books. You'll also be eligible for the monthly prize, which this month is a mini helmet autographed by Dylan Sampson. I don't know why I have so much trouble saying mini helmet, but that's what it is. And it's brought to you by our friends at Sports Treasures. Over 5 million sports treasures. That's 5 million sports treasures in North Knoxville for over 35 years. Also, money's tight, which I know it is for everybody. Be a free member of Hooker's Corner. Just click on the QR code there, and you'll be eligible for Rick Terry's Great 8 Garmin Challenge. When we hit 8,000 subscribers, we will be giving away a Garmin watch thanks to Rick Terry and Rick Terry Jewelry Design. How about those fire opals? An affordable game day tradition. That's Rick Terry Jewelry Design. So coming up, we will visit with John Adams, couple topics that we're going to kick around, and they have to do with Nico and Josh Heupel, and you'll definitely want to stay tuned. And we'll have Football IQ, in which some coaches weren't so bright over the weekend, and Caleb always has his eye out for that. Stay tuned. 2 minutes. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Community banking is about location and much more. It's about family. We reside in your community. We are a part of your community. At Commercial Bank, our commitment extends beyond the walls of our branches. It's displayed each day in the opportunities we provide, the money we give back, and the time we commit, all to help improve the lives of the people, families, and businesses that make our communities great. Commercial Bank, life made better.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Are you ready to get strong? At NFC, we offer top-notch weight training and functional fitness, so you can build strength and improve your performance. Join today at NFC1.com or stop by any one of our 7 East Tennessee locations.
When the lights turn on and the game begins, you need a team you can rely on. Ray Varner Ford and Clinton's strong lineup of vehicles is crafted with the same dedication and hard work that drives our community. Step up your game in this 2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford. Ray Varner Ford, built for the game.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right, we're going to get to John Adams in just one moment, and we always love to do that. As the program represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. As we love visiting with John each and every Tuesday, and his appearance is brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. So I see John down there in the little window. We'll bring him in momentarily, as John is always welcome in this program. As Caleb, I do want to remind everybody real quick, the show brought to you in part by Work Trucks. Our friends at Work Trucks do a fantastic job all about trucks that are actually available, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right work vehicle now. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, it has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for work trucks, cargo vans, utility body trucks with an iPod work bodies installed, pickup trucks of all sizes, anything special like cranes or dump trucks. Work Truck supplies vehicles to people just like you and get you back on the road tomorrow. No dealership runaround. If you're a contractor, you got to know Work Trucks with an X. Work Trucks carries the trucks that your business has to have. You need Work Trucks. Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. For the entire inventory, go online to worktrucksllc.com, worktrucksllc.com. Don't risk chancing your future in business on a wrong piece of equipment that burns your time. Work Trucks will have that perfect truck fit to a T. Proud supporters of the Tennessee Vols. worktrucksllc.com. All right, let's go ahead and bring John in here. If you can click on that there, Caleb, and bring the one, the only John Adams. He is a Hall of Famer in more than one regard. I would say Hall of Fame columnist. I would say Hall of Fame husband, Hall of Fame mentor, all around a Hall of Famer. And he appears to be a little chilly, John. Is it cold in your house this morning?
No, but I have been having chills. I'm not sure exactly why.
That's not good.
You thought you were being funny, and actually a physical problem, Dave. Okay, so go ahead and make light of it. That's what you do. Everything's a big joke to you. Oh, I see you're bleeding there. Look, you can't walk. How funny.
You can't move your legs. All right, John. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
We talked last night, and we're talking about topics here to kick around. And one that you brought up pretty darn quickly is Nico Iamaleava getting worse? So is Nico getting worse throughout this season, or is he just playing tougher competition? What does John Adams think?
Well, the last 3 games, he certainly played tougher competition than the first 3 games. However, just looking at those 3 games, I think he's gotten a little worse. And I've been a huge proponent of his from the get-go, less so now. But, yeah, I just against Florida, he missed some opportunities. And it's 2 things. One, he's not the runner I thought he would be. That's pretty obvious by now. I based a lot of that on what he did against Dodgers Bowl. I thought he was going to be a dynamic runner. You would want to use him sparingly as a runner, but when you used him, he could make big plays. He could convert a broken play into a big play, and he hasn't been able to do that. So that's one thing. The other thing, I thought in his first 3 games, his passing, he showed us every kind of pass. He can rocket the ball, great fastball, but he also has a really deft touch when need be. And he seemed to know when to throw which. So, but the last 3 games, I've seen him throw. It seems as though he's throwing harder and harder. And that might be a sign of pressure, perhaps pressure from the rush, pressure from a tight game, that type thing.
So, John, I was going to go to that. How much do you think Nico's issue is that, and I'm with you, I was aside. I mean, I literally said Nico Iamaleava was created in a lab to play in Josh Heupel's system. But how... so it doesn't look like
well,
it now.
Just seems kind of funny now. And Joe Milton was created in the same lab, right? No, go ahead.
Yeah, and so my question is, though, how much of this does fall on the tackles? I mean, I most of the time when quarterbacks struggle, the offensive line is the first to be blamed, and I think a lot of times quarterbacks can overcome that. But Nico is a freshman, and this is the worst offensive tackle play I've witnessed at Tennessee in a long time. So how much of that falls on he's just seeing ghosts now?
John, it might be ever for me. That's 25 years.
You think the tackles are that bad?
I think they're that bad.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I watch him. It really, when you watch if you record the game and then watch it a second time, that's when it really sticks out. Oops, here they come. Yeah, I think that's a big factor. But Caleb, you go back to the first 3 games when he wasn't really pressured, and he did well. So that's certainly a factor. But what I was expecting from him was something more. And I always use that. I bring up guys like Johnny Manziel because they just make plays no matter what. They just find a way. And that was just it wasn't a hope. I just kind of thought that might be what Nico will be. But I'm not seeing that. I mean, he's at the opposite end of the spectrum, don't you think? Because when those guys come crashing past those tackles, he's not only failing to elude them, he's also not protecting the ball. And so that's an issue too.
Well, that's a big one. And I think if we were sitting here having this conversation that he had just played average and hadn't thrown into coverage a couple of times last week and against NC State, I realize a strip sack is partly on the offensive lineman, but he's had other fumbles as well. If I want to go back to that Oklahoma game, but he's had other issues. He had a fumble against Florida. So how different is the narrative and it's a big if, but if you take those turnovers out and he's the 8th most efficient quarterback in the SEC, which he currently is. That would improve by not throwing interceptions, but just across the board, how different would the narrative be if not for the turnovers?
The narrative would be different, and then you would look at Tennessee as truly a team that is trying to win with defense, a running game. Dylan Sampson's one of the top running backs, not just in the SEC, but in the country. And with a quarterback who's those dreaded words, kind of a game manager, if he's efficient and doesn't turn it over, that's not what you expected to see. But yeah, that would definitely be an improvement.
John, how much of this are numbers misleading? Our stat of the day, and I brought it up last segment. You may not know this, but basically Nico pretty much leads any freshman quarterback to ever start at Tennessee in every single statistical category possible.
Let's just go ahead and get it out there. Caleb said that this is the best. Nico's the best freshman quarterback that Tennessee's ever had.
He's having the best freshman season statistically ever, and that's not disputable. And I mean efficiency-wise too. Highest quarterback rating, highest completion percentage, highest yards per attempt. Are we being a little hard on him, or is that to be expected? Should it be better because of this era and this offense?
No, I don't think we're being too hard on him. I mean, yeah, he was better statistically than Peyton Manning. And he played a lot as a true freshman. I guess the last half of the season, he was the number one quarterback and kept getting better. But no, this is a little bit different. And keep in mind, he's a redshirt freshman. Peyton was a true freshman. So that's a factor in it too. So much was expected of him. And Tennessee is the NIL money. We don't know exactly what it is, but the price tag usually is around $2 million a year, which really isn't out of line with what the top quarterback recruits are getting. So yeah, I mean, more is expected of him certainly than any freshman quarterback. But my gosh, you look at those first 3 games and you look at Heupel's system, and we've noticed this not just for quarterbacks. Heupel's offense against bad teams really piles up numbers that can skewer sacks. I mean, stats. You just think about it. Kent State's the worst team in the country. Let me down against Ball State, though, by a 53-yard touchdown pass on 40 seconds to go to beat the spread, not win the game. It's unfortunate for all the people to whom I recommended Kent as a sure thing, not just this Saturday, but every Saturday. Just go ahead and bet all their games.
I've been doing that same thing, by the way.
Yeah. Well, see, but unlike you, Caleb, unlike you, John doesn't bet his own money. He just tells people to do it.
Yeah. Sort of voyeuristic there. Yeah. Well, go. Yeah. You can't lose with that. Good luck to you. Hey, you made the decision. Don't blame me. You pull the trigger on that one. Yeah. And then NC State. We talked about this last week. I mean, how bad is NC State? It's I think is it 3-4 or 3-3, but it easily could have lost a couple of games to Western Carolina. So, and of course an FCS opponent in Chattanooga. So that really changes how the stats should be viewed. You look at his SEC stats.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he's still only 8 of 14, I believe, because Arch Manning and Quinn Ewers have split time. So they don't have enough attempts to qualify. So he's like bottom half of the SEC right now based off quarterbacks that have thrown enough passes to qualify. So I want to ask you this, John. It is also our poll question if people want to take part. I'm most concerned about Nico's running ability, comprehension, arm, or unfair expectations. John's appearance is brought to you by Neubert Collision Center.
35th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
John, most concerned about Nico's running ability, comprehension, arm, unfair expectations.
Certainly, there's no question about his arm. He makes throws guys in the NFL don't make. You can watch a lot of guys Sunday and not see his highlight reel any better than his. I guess
Can I interrupt you for a second on that? Do you still think that from an accuracy standpoint, after he overthrew a couple of guys deep, and I thought the Chris Brazel, Caleb and I debated this, but I thought the Chris Brazel throw had to be more inbounds. He ended up catching it out of bounds. So for me, the first time that I questioned his accuracy was Saturday against Florida.
Yeah, and see, to me, that I think of a bigger issue. I think of how he performs under pressure, because of the throwing ability he had in the first few games when he wasn't under pressure. Not just the pressure of a pass rush, but the pressure of a tight game. We're seeing a different kind of player. We're not seeing somebody that raises their game amid adversity. Part of that might be his lack of experience, whatever. But you've seen them too, guys that are immediate, that they show that quality right away. They may be lacking in other areas, but they have an ability to raise their game in tight situations. I thought DJ Lagway, a true freshman, that was a tremendous pass he made to tie that Tennessee game and send it into overtime.
It is funny you bring that up, because that would have been the exact type of play I expected out of Nico.
Yeah. Agree.
I mean, is that unfair to expect that, the presence to step up in the pocket and zip a ball to a guy that's pretty open?
No, I mean, that is what you
No.
expect. But I think that's where Nico's demons came to hit. Look, John, I know what you bring up about Peyton Manning, but the reason I wanted to bring up those numbers is I can't remember a freshman quarterback getting hit as much as Nico Iamaleava has been at Tennessee. And what I mean by that is, when Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, I think you had some of the best offensive linemen in history at that time starting at Tennessee. Casey Clausen, not much different. I mean, had a pretty elite offensive line that year. It wasn't as good as Peyton's. Peyton had massive linemen. Eric Ainge had a really good line in 2004. I can't remember a freshman quarterback starting at Tennessee like this, starting at the beginning of the season, so they had to play the gauntlet of some of the tougher games, and getting hit the way Nico's been getting hit. And I think that's where I just think he's seeing ghosts at this point.
John?
Well, sometimes those ghosts don't go away for quarterbacks when they have a tough introduction. I've seen other young quarterbacks in the SEC get hit some too. South Carolina's Lagway at Florida. But they're still bouncing back and making plays. I guess maybe my expectations are just too high for Nico. Maybe I just thought he was going to be so much better than he is, and that's unfair to him. If you want to look at it from that perspective, that this guy just wasn't quite whom we thought he was.
Speaking of not who we thought they were, let's turn now to Josh Heupel. And we can talk all we want to about Nico not living up to the hype, pun intended. But at some point, don't we have to look at Josh Heupel? And this is still a Tennessee team that's coming off a win. This is not time to throw up the white flag. But we're looking at an offensive line that he built, John, and that is not good at the tackle position. And I was told by somebody within the program before last year that 2024 would be a struggle on the offensive line. I thought as long as they stayed healthy, they'd be fine. I don't even think that's the case now with Hurd, and I don't think that John Campbell Jr. is ever going to be healthy. So did we overestimate what Josh Heupel would be able to do, both last year with Joe Milton, this year with Nico? I mean, this roster is still not a Georgia or Alabama in its prime type of roster where you can plug in another tackle and expect to just roll.
Yeah, I'm seeing fewer teams in college football that can just plug in another tackle and roll. I think this is systemic with the sport right now. But yeah, if you go back to Josh Heupel's first season, when he averaged almost 40 points a game with a 7-win team, and started out with Joe Milton at quarterback, made a quick switch and went back to Hendon Hooker. but that team had been significantly impacted by attrition because all the guys that transferred out, probably about 10 starters. So based on that, I think the expectations for Josh Heupel offense and for Josh Heupel as an offensive coach are just off the charts. It's he'll find a way. He'll mask weaknesses. He'll do whatever. His system just works, and he's a creative play caller. So that's kind of how I viewed him. The 2022 season only raised those expectations. So you say, give him the right quarterback with that system, game over. And what did Nick Saban say this year, former Alabama coach? If you created a quarterback for Josh Heupel's system, it would be this one, Nico Iamaleava. So Urban Meyer, another great former coach, raved about Nico. So you put all that together, the coach, the system, and the quarterback, why aren't you scoring 40 points a game? We had those expectations for Heupel too, and we're changing those expectations, obviously.
John, let me jump in and ask, how much of Josh Heupel's problems are his own arrogance? I've been on this about Josh Heupel for a long time, where I feel like he is very confident in his ability to plug and play and say, I'm Josh Heupel. I have this offense that no one's figured out, so I can do whatever I want. I don't want to go here, but it gives kind of Lincoln Riley vibes to a degree. Anybody with eyes saw that Joe Milton was not a fit for his system, and Josh Heupel in his mind is like, well, I'll take Joe Milton because I'm Josh Heupel and I'm a genius and I'll make it work and I can get any tackles to throw in. Is Josh Heupel's arrogance getting the best of him at this point because of his early success?
Possibly. But see, this year I thought he had the quarterback. And
he didn't bother to upgrade the line.
Pardon?
But he didn't bother to upgrade the line.
Well,
that's a fair point. Yeah, I need to.
John, he tried with Lance Hurd. I just think that we've learned that offensive lineman. Andre Keurig wasn't great last year either. And I think we have learned that with offensive linemen in general in college football, they need to be high school recruits and be in your system and learn it. I think there are issues with Hurd that have nothing to do with that, but I believe that's something that Josh Heupel didn't fully understand and thought you could just plug and play these guys, and that hasn't been the case.
But that speaks to Caleb's question and his contention that Josh Heupel maybe thinks, well, I can just put any 320-pound guy in there, and with my system, it'll work. But it's clearly not working.
No, very fair point, Caleb.
That's where I'm at. It's very reminiscent to me of you guys watch a lot of NFL. I'm dealing with it right now with my Titans and Will Levis. But you see these coaches that rather than the GM admit they drafted the wrong quarterback, they just keep shuffling coaches, finding somebody that's like, oh, this guy will make it work with this quarterback I drafted. And they just keep firing coaches the way Al Davis fired Lane Kiffin because he couldn't make it work with Jamarcus Russell. And when it turned out nobody could make it work with Jamarcus Russell. And so I'm seeing that somewhat with Josh Heupel where, because you're in college, you're the GM and the coach, and he's thinking, I can make it work with anybody. I just got to get this guy or this guy. And it's fine.
Well, Joe Milton is a prime example, if that's the point you're trying to make, because Josh Heupel not only made the mistake with Joe Milton once, but twice.
Yes.
Last year's offense dropped off dramatically with Joe Milton at quarterback. And yet Josh Heupel believed that, this guy works in my system. He went out of his way to get him from Michigan. Which kind of brings to mind another thing I was wondering about, see what you guys think. We talked about this a lot last year. Do you think it would make any difference at this point with Nico if he would have played last year? If he would have had maybe the last 3 regular season games and he had one bowl game, that's all he had as a start. But if he would have played more and significant snaps. Do you think it would have made any difference based on what's going on right now?
I hadn't thought of it, but yes, I do. I think he's been overly protected.
I think it's possible. I was the one who defended the sticking with Joe Milton last year because I just thought Nico was too brittle. And I didn't think the line was there with Cooper Mays banged up. But you guys do have a point because I think part of the missed deep shots has to do with chemistry with receivers. I think one that sailed down the sideline, I think that's one where Nico maybe had thought that Chaz Nimrod was going to break back in. And Chaz Nimrod thought, oh no, I should go, vertical, just straight down the sideline. Nimrod was right, by the way, because he was wide open. But I think
Nimrod would have had to run to the Gatorade bucket to catch that ball.
That's true too.
I mean, John, I have trouble putting that one on Nimrod.
No, I'm not putting it on Nimrod. I'm saying Nico's chemistry with his receivers. I think learning, he's only doing what he's coached to do and is not yet thinking for himself enough, I think is the best way to say it.
Well, you bring up receivers. Are they getting a pass on all of this because of the fledgling passing game, or do they have nothing to do with the offense sputtering, or are the receivers also an issue? What do you guys think?
I think they're an issue. I think the biggest issue at play is Tennessee has not adapted to this 3-3 look or 3-2-6 look. I don't think coaches have necessarily figured them out, but I think that's when arrogance plays into it. I think Josh Heupel would much rather thump you by 50 than struggle to win 13-10. And who wouldn't? But in particular with him, I don't think Nick Saban cared back in the day. I mean, he won a lot of games where I thought he took his foot off the gas too early, pre-Lane Kiffin, John. And I think that's where Tennessee needs to be. I think they need to be ultra conservative, given Nico's propensity to turn the ball over, given that they have one of the best tailbacks in recent memory, and an offensive line that excels at run blocking and that is horrible at pass blocking.
How would you feel if you were one of the NIL boosters who's signing the checks that go to Nico? If someone says, yeah, we need to be really conservative, basically work your way around your quarterback, how would you feel if you were contributing to that? Would that want to make you throw more money quarterback's way, or would it make you want to say, what was I thinking?
Well, I can tell you that there were decisions made off Hendon Hooker's performance as far as what NIL opportunities were out there. I think the fact that he was pre-bought, so to speak, is problematic because everybody else on Tennessee's football team that's gotten paid a tremendous amount of money, other than Lance Hurd, they have proven themselves. Those are the two guys now that have not proven themselves at an all SEC level. Any argument?
Nico and Lance.
Yep, that they got prepaid. It's like the Target card you buy because you don't know what to get your family for Christmas. You just get them the Target card.
Yeah, but Bryce
You
Young was
can't,
prepaid.
Yeah, he was. You can't spell NIL without an N without a Lance and a Nico.
Thank you. All right, John. But on a serious note here, I wrote a column, but I've lost faith in Nico, but
I'm sure that hurt. I'm sure that hurt him. Go ahead.
Actually, he blocked me on Twitter, but that's another issue for another day. So yeah. So anyway, we talked about that earlier. So I will say this. I covered a lot of Alabama for Saturday Down South because for some reason Alabama, even though it was the most successful program, they didn't have anybody competent that wanted to write for them. So I said, well, I'm incompetent, but I'll write for you. So we did that. And I thought that Bryce Young early in his career, and John, I ask you this specifically because I know how much football you watch. I thought that he was indecisive when he would roll out about the first month of the season. He had a fantastic first year where he set multiple Alabama records. So I'm not knocking the whole year, but I thought there were times where he could have just run and picked up 5 to 7 yards, and he would kind of just dance at the line of scrimmage. Do you recall that by chance?
No, I mean, I did watch him play a lot. I thought he was really good right away, but I don't remember that particular problem he had. Thanks for pointing it out to me. I'll go back and research that.
Sure you will. So my question is, though, I mean, how easy is it for us to change, or for Nico to change our minds? Because I think Jonathan Crompton did the same thing in the last half of his senior year. So just because I'm lacking faith right now doesn't mean it's a death sentence by any stretch of the imagination.
Well, I hope not. No, we change our mind all the time. That's what sports are about. You don't just you have an idea going into the season. I had an idea what Nico is. Okay, he doesn't play up to what I thought he would. That doesn't mean he won't play up to it later. You just keep an open mind and changes based on the results. So no, that's not a death sentence at all. You'd look pretty stupid if you never changed your mind about what you think athletes will do.
No, agreed. How big is the Alabama game? They're not fantastic at defending the pass.
Yeah, they're nowhere near fantastic. That's Alabama's flaw. One of the flaws, not the only one, but going into the season, that's what everybody looked at. You lose 2 guys to the NFL. Caleb Downs starts looking the Buckeyes way and says, I'm out of here. Better program, more money. See you. And a more experienced coach. So, yeah, I think that this is a game where you would think Tennessee's passing game could take off. But you know what? I thought the same thing about the Arkansas game. I really, there were a couple of passers that kind of lit up Arkansas secondary. So I thought, but now I think again, this game's at home. That should help. So Alabama's was kind of weak there to begin with. It's had a couple of injuries, so it's even weaker. But if those tackles don't block Alabama's pass rushers, it might not matter.
That's fair. Chattanooga Mortgage, they will take care of you. Your home search just got easier. Buying a home in Chattanooga has never been easier. Go to chatmortgage.com. I'll tell you the other thing about Chattanooga Mortgage that you might not know is they also will help you clean up your credit so you get a better rate. And with rates where they are, you need that. So if you're anywhere in the Chattanooga area, please check out Chattanooga Mortgage, chatmortgage.com, and tell them that Dave Hooker and Off the Hook Sports sent you. Coming up, can the Vols beat Alabama by just running the football? I'm going to tell you, I'm going to bank on that. Brought to you by Commercial Bank. We'll be with you in 2 minutes. We'll be right back. Hit that like button if you think that Tennessee can beat Alabama by primarily running the football. 2 minutes with John Adams, brought to you by Neubert Collision Center. I'm Dave Hooker and Caleb Calhoun, Off the Hook Sports. The show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
2024 F-150 4x4 Super Crew STX, $46,994. 24 Ford Expedition XLT, $59,978. 24 F-250 Crew Cab 4x4 STX, $57,888.
Local you trust, performance you can afford.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
With our brand new location on Emory Road, Eye Care Optical is bringing East Tennessee's best eye care to your neighborhood. Doctors Johnston and Combs offer unmatched expertise and care without a trip to Knoxville. Eye Care Optical, now in Powell.
Double D Piping provides full-service fire protection on any scale. From residential homes to government facilities, we can assist any customer through design, fabrication, installation, inspection, and demonstration of fire suppression systems. With 30 years of service across 5 states and a full staff with over 40 years experience, our quality can't be beaten. Don't get caught watching what you could have prevented. Call Double D Piping, the absolute best in fire prevention.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on offthehooksports.com.
All right, here we go. Welcome back to the program. As with John Adams, I'm Dave Hooker, Caleb Calhoun with you each and every weekday at 10 a.m. And we're going to get to Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank member FDIC. Life made better. Commercial Bank creates positive experiences for every customer. Every day, better solutions, better technology. Commercial Bank for personal and business. Commercial Bank, life made better. So I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there right now. And I mean this. I'll ask both of you guys if you agree. It's Bank on It. Tennessee can beat Alabama by double digits if they'll just rely on running the football. Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank, life made better.
All right, so John, I'll ask you, if Tennessee runs for 150 yards, can they beat Alabama by double digits? Do they need to rely on the running game instead of Nico, despite the fact that Alabama isn't very good against the pass?
Yeah, it wasn't great against the run against Vanderbilt. You could do that if you have Vanderbilt's quarterback, Diego Pavia, and Vanderbilt's offensive coordinator, Tim Beck. Maybe they could borrow them for a game. No, I don't think it can beat at double digits doing that. I do think it can win by passing sparingly, maybe going to 2 tight ends more, try and make a few plays in the passing game, but build your offense around the running game. Tennessee has a strong kicking game. Tennessee has a really good defense. Alabama's offense has problems too. It's got ordinary running backs. Alabama's not going to be able to run the ball on Tennessee unless Jalen Milroe does it. And cause of concern for Alabama last week was Jalen Milroe didn't protect the football well. He had problems with that early on as a starter. But this year he'd been pretty good about that. So that's an issue for Alabama. But I mean, you'll have to throw some, but I don't think, no, it's not going to win by double digits doing that.
Caleb?
Do you believe that, Caleb?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they can win by double digits playing ground and pound and winning with defense. I mean, at the end of the day, we saw this last week, no matter how often, and you're right, Jalen Milroe there's really major cracks in the armor now. And I think Georgia kind of cracked the code somewhat in the second half, which is that, I mean, again, in this air raid, if you force Jalen Milroe to go through his progressions, which the air raid is designed to do, he's just not a fit for Kalen DeBoer's offense. DeBoer's done a great job adjusting trying to adjust his system to Jalen Milroe, similar to how Urban Meyer tried to adjust his spread offense to Chris Leak way back in the day. But there's still limitations. I do think, though, even with that, Jalen Milroe is going to be good for a big play a game. I mean, that's just a minimum baseline. I mean, I don't know when, I don't know where, but I feel like he's good for a 60-yard touchdown every game, isn't he? And it just the nature of how he plays. And that's what's going to make it hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I guess that's another part of the equation is you have to contain him, but you won't contain him for an entire game. Maybe what you can do if you can turn what might be a 75-yard touchdown into a 25-yard gain with him, because you're right. He has tremendous speed. Once he gets rolling in the secondary, it's really hard to take him down. So yeah, that's what's kind of odd about this game in a way is you have two teams still in the running for the playoff and the national championship because of the playoff. But we're talking about all the flaws they have.
Yeah, we're talking about
yeah, and I'm sorry to interrupt, Caleb. I'm a firm believer that that's just where college football is right now, John. And I think you and I have discussed this earlier. I believe by the transfer portal and NIL, Pavi is a great example at Vanderbilt. You're able to address needs. So I think it's helped the lower class, Vanderbilt. I think it's helped the middle class, and which Tennessee probably was before Josh Heupel. And I think we're going to be having the discussion to make the college football playoff that I believe in 2 or 3 years that 9 wins is something to shoot for, that might get you in. John, it's not this year, but I still think there's going to be some leveling of the playing field moving forward.
Yeah, and we don't know what the selection committee is going to do, how heavily it will judge strength of schedule, how much it will listen to SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, who really would like to see 8 SEC teams in the playoff. And He will do everything he can to make that happen. But you're right. But it does make college football more interesting and more entertaining. I've enjoyed this season as much as any season I can remember watching, just because of every game seems to matter. Even Kent State and Ball State.
I mean, y'all,
Caleb,
I'm your huckleberry.
Are you willing to admit right now that the regular season is better because of the playoff? Go ahead.
You would think that I am John's age and John is my age, because I'm the one who is nostalgic for the just BCS era, and I just want the 2 teams going. But I get it, John. I wouldn't have agreed with you with this expanded playoff 4 years ago before NIL and transfer portal. But I think because of it, it does make it even more interesting because of the level of parity. My only issue is, I'm sorry, there's never going to be a regular season game that goes down in history the way like the 2013 Kick 6 Iron Bowl goes down in history. That's never going to happen anymore in college football. And I think that's what I hate the most about it, is that like there's never going to be that anymore because of the
playoff. But I understand that. Yeah, you lose that, but what you do is you just get so many more games that are meaningful. And by the way, I thought Caleb and I were the same age, or not?
Yeah, and just for the record, I think Caleb had money on the Kick 6 game because he brings it up every time when this.
That is well, the reason I bring it up is, guys, when anybody asks me, and I don't know what you guys would say. Some people say Ali Frazier, some people say a Super Bowl here or there. When someone asks me what's the greatest spectacle, the greatest moment you ever witnessed in sports, it's that Kick 6 and the aftermath of that game. And I mean, Vern Lundquist, to his credit, even said, he said that moment, the magnitude was so great. Gary and I decided not even to say anything for the first few minutes, just to let people watch. College football was the only thing that created those moments, man, in the regular season. And I'm 98 Tennessee Florida.
The same thing about the Miracle on Ice. He got out of the way too. I mean,
and he had to be like, "Do you believe in miracles?" Yes, he had to get memorable. No. So,
John, let me ask you, what's the greatest game you've ever covered?
That I've covered, it would be Southern Cal against Texas at the end of the 2005 seasons, because of all the things surrounding it. Southern Cal going for 3 straight national titles, which is so rare to pull off. In Texas, in 2 of the greatest college football players of all time, weren't great in the pros, but Reggie Bush and Vince Young, they made plays in that game that I just haven't seen many guys do.
I still recall you asking about the Reggie Bush lateral. You asked Lane Kiffin about that, who was on the Southern Cal staff. Do you remember his response?
I'm not sure I do.
I do. He was as dumbfounded by the question as he was by the lateral. I remember you ask, and John doesn't go to every press conference, and he asks questions that are a little deeper than the average. Hey, how's that backup offensive tackle doing? That was kind of my job. But John asked, well, I just did you ever see Reggie Bush do anything like that in another game or practice? And Lane goes, no, never. Not in practice, not in a game, never, ever, ever. And it was one of the classic moments in press conference history.
I thought Lane was, the way it answered it, it was almost as though he was seeing the play again in his head. It's one of the strangest plays I've ever seen in a game, but I think it spoke to Reggie Bush's ridiculous talent at the college level. He genuinely believed he could do anything. I'll just throw it over my head to this guy over here, and he'll run in for the touchdown, and I'll celebrate with him in the end zone. Didn't work out that way.
Remind me when we had an older guy in my neighborhood that could always get to the hoop and score. And we said, you shoot too much. So he would just dribble underneath and then back it out, and then dribble underneath and back it out just to show us that he could. That's what it reminded me of. And yes, that was the most bizarre play. Now, let me ask you this, though. What's the more bizarre play, that lateral or Tennessee going for it on fourth down at their own, 11-yard line?
Last week, yeah.
Both were bizarre in different ways. Yeah, the Reggie Bush play, both had a stunning quality to them. But Reggie Bush's play was happening at full speed. I mean, this was just, it was improv. I mean, Reggie Bush just, I think I'll do this. Boom. Josh Heupel had time to think about this, and here's what he came up with. Just so strange. I mean, I remember Hal Mummy at Kentucky going for it on the first series from his own 21-yard line, 4th and 9, and just going for it on fourth down. Of course, it didn't work. That Josh Heupel, that Tennessee made the first downs irrelevant. It just was the strangest call. I'm trying to think of a stranger call by a Tennessee coach.
Well, John, it's funny. I will say this with the Josh Heupel thing, and I want to bring it back to the Alabama game because of this. Because Heupel is, whatever you want to think about that play, and I thought that was desperation, but one of the reasons I think Tennessee has a great chance winning the game running the ball next week is Heupel, for all of his bluster of passing and things, he's the first Tennessee coach I've seen in a long time willingly get under center on 4th and short or 3rd and short to run the ball. And I'm like, that's a lost art in college football. And against a Kalen DeBoer system who is a little more finesse, in a close game, we talk about running the ball. Could that be the difference, that Tennessee can convert its 3rd and 1s and Alabama can't?
I guess so, but I still don't. As far as that play goes, it just made absolutely no sense. And he said that, I didn't want to have to put my defense back on the field. Well, still the defense on first half, you rotate 1 million players on defensive front. And Florida is very adept at shooting itself in the foot. So I would be willing to take my chances on that than trying to 4th and 1. Good gosh.
I'm an analytics guy. I loved it.
Come on. The analytics don't say
come on, Caleb.
The analytics say always go for it on 4th and 1. Always, 100% of the time.
Okay, well,
you can
you can replace Billy Napier at Florida, and we'll see how long.
Billy Napier, we're going to get to him in football like you. He did not play analytics on Saturday. He played stupid.
Okay,
Billy Napier can't spell analytics. Go ahead, Dave.
That was on the 11-yard line, right, Caleb?
Yep.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So, Caleb, John, let me have some fun with Caleb here for a second. Would you do it on your own 10?
Yeah. Why not?
Would you do it on your own 5?
Yeah.
You have room to punt. Would you do it on your own 1-yard line? in the first quarter.
How the heck would you need a 1 yard to get a first down if you're on your own 1 yard line? That's not possible, Dave.
The UPS store, Hardin Valley, here to help individuals and small businesses by offering a wide range of products and services. Had that play not gone well, I think that some people would like to ship Josh Heupel out of town. UPS store, Hardin Valley, locally owned and operated, conveniently located 10629 Hardin Valley Road. Football IQ, Caleb gets to giggle. John and I just full out laugh is coming your way. A quick 60 seconds from our friends at TriStar Hats, TriStarHatsCo.com, and use the promo code HOOK for 10% off.
Is TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Elias says Napier was too busy checking the details to learn analytics. He's very detail-oriented, John. And for those that don't for those that don't think I rock good, our poll question, what is more important stat in the Vols game versus Alabama? I was just going to have 2, and then I came up with 3. So I know the difference between more and most. But, John, let me throw these at you. Milroe's rushing, Sampson's rushing, Nico's passing before we get to coaching IQ.
What's more important?
Yes, at the end of the day, is it Nico's passing yards, is it Milroe's rushing yards, or Sampson's rushing yards?
I think it's Milroe's rushing yards.
Okay. I could go that, or I would, but to me, it's between him and Sampson. Caleb, would you argue that? I mean, I think that Tennessee can win with Nico having an average game.
I think they can absolutely win with Nico having an average game. And largely because, again, the one big question we didn't talk about is part of ground and pound is actually having a good defense. And the question is, can Tennessee contain Milroe without Keenan Pili? Which is going to be, if Jeremiah Thielander can contain Milroe, then yeah, Tennessee can run it down their throats and really control the tempo of the game. But otherwise, there could be an issue.
Yep. Asian Cafe, treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from, asiacafe.org. They have that Brazilian Cocoa Energy Booster Premix Instant White Coffee that's awesome. Been around since 1909. I love it. You will absolutely have fantastic energy throughout the day. Look at me. All right, and the bag is right behind my shoulder. All right, so let's get to coaching IQ. Tease this forward, Caleb, as it'll be the last look, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. Who are some of the coaches that are going to make the list?
We got a few repeat offenders on this one. And by the way, I'll say this. We're all human. I've never held it against a coach for making my list one time because I think every human in the history has made a mistake at some point. They're like, why the heck did I make that dumb mistake? But if you keep finding yourself on the list, you may not be very bright. And so we got a few of those, including we got Shane Beamer, Billy Napier, and 2 coaches on here who were on here just last week. They made it on back-to-back weeks. This is going to be fun, guys.
All right. Last look brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn and their Vision Center. Life is better when you see better. Look at me. No contacts, no glasses. CCTeyes.com. CCTeyes.com. So if I agree with Caleb,
Hey now.
he gets that. If I agree with Caleb, it might get this.
That's crazy.
And if I really agree with Caleb, it gets the
You suck, you jackass.
which never gets old. All right, Caleb, what do we got up first? Who is the first to take a shot from Caleb Calhoun?
The one, the only Shane Beamer, who seems to make this list a lot. Because Shane Beamer, it was a close game. I don't know if the outcome would have been different had he done this, but after an incomplete pass, South Carolina had the ball at the Alabama 36. It was 2nd and 18. Lenora Sellers throws an incomplete pass. Shane Beamer uses a timeout on 3rd and 18 with the clock stopped and 6:55 left in the fourth quarter. And because they couldn't get a play all. And then coming out of that, they decide we need to just get a pass for field goal range. Fine. They decide to throw a 3-yard pass to have their kicker try a 51-yard field goal when he's never made a 50-yard field goal in his life.
That's crazy.
John, your thoughts on Shane Beamer as a head coach?
Yeah, he needs to be punished. I'm going to spend a little more time. He needs to be. I need to think of a deserving punishment for that. And I'm sure he has appeared many times on Caleb's list and will in the future. He does some bizarre things, don't you think?
Yes,
very bizarre things.
Yeah,
he is the.
But you got,
he's the.
I just hate it when coaches. I know in the NFL, field goals are so commonplace and the kickers are so accurate, but that's not the case in college. When you're playing to set up a 51-yard field goal
out of the timeout.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got this poll question up right now. You can take part in our YouTube page. Who is dumbest coach in the SEC? Shane Beamer, Billy Napier, Florida's coach, or South Carolina's coach? So you have 4 options to choose from there. All right, Caleb, who's up next?
Well, coach I actually believe in makes the next list. Did you guys see that Vanderbilt Kentucky game over the weekend and one of Mark Stoops' greatest blunders?
I saw a few plays in it. Go ahead.
So Kentucky got the ball deep in Vanderbilt territory. It was about with 2 minutes left in the third. Vanderbilt was up 17-7, and they bring up a 2nd and goal at the 1. But Vanderbilt, but they draw a penalty, so they can do one of 2 things. They can make it 1st and goal from the 2 or 2nd and goal from the 1. This is my analytics coming in, guys. But the extra down is way more important than the extra yard, 100% of the time.
I would totally agree with that, John.
Not Mark Stoops. He declines the penalty.
Yeah.
And says, no, I'll take it 2nd and goal at the 1, gets a false start, and 2 plays later throws an interception.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
There you go.
It's an echo in here.
Yes, John and Tracy Morgan are practically the same person. All right, who's up next?
All right, we're going to go out west with 2 returning champions from California. First, Justin Wilcox. I don't know if you guys watched Cal Pittsburgh over the weekend, but Pittsburgh is still undefeated, largely because Justin Wilcox. Cal got the ball. They were down 17-15 to Pittsburgh, okay? And they got the ball into Pittsburgh territory with roughly, I'm going to say it was about 5 minutes left, okay? 5 minutes left. Justin Wilcox decided, I'm going to run the clock. I'm going to settle for a field goal. I'm going to settle for a 40-yard field goal and run the clock all the way down to 1:54 and not even try to get a first down. And the field goal was missed. So Pittsburgh was able to run out the clock. He ran it 3 times just to try to settle for the field goal with 5 minutes left.
You suck.
He really does. Former defensive coordinator. You know what? I think I'm taking this. I think I'm taking this segment a little too seriously because Caleb is giving out this information. I'm writing down the situation here on a note. Yeah, I'm writing it down, and then I'm writing it down so I can make a serious decision whether that's either that's crazy or you suck. I'm trying to. I want to make sure I get it just right.
All right, we continue with Coaching IQ. Last Look brought to you by Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn.
To visit cctis.com. The information you need is easy to access, and setting an appointment is as simple as clicking the tab. Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn, and Eye Care Optical at cctis.com. Simply the best.
All right, Caleb, who's up next?
All right, we got one more before we got my favorite of the weekend. But did y'all see Lincoln Riley's clock management on that final drive when USC played Penn State over the weekend?
Yes, and I'm more than willing to go ahead and drop this in right now.
You suck.
They had the ball barely past midfield with 2 minutes left. Actually, I think it was 3. And Lincoln Riley decided it'd be a good idea to run the clock down to 14 seconds with multiple running plays and not use any of his timeouts. And so USC had to do a desperation play to try to score, and they throw an interception, which is why the game goes to overtime to begin with. Whereas if they just run their regular offense, they probably get into field goal range to kick a game-winning field goal.
Yeah, I wonder if he's trying to get fired out there.
It looked like
I do think when I look at those two measuring sticks, that's crazy can be kind of an aberration, something that just it could happen to anybody, just some crazy moment. But you suck is so defining, like you're horrible and you will never do any better. This is who you are. You suck.
Yeah, and Lincoln Riley has lost 8 of his last 16, getting paid $10 million a year. So I think that's firmly.
You suck. You suck out.
All right, who's next, Caleb?
And our favorite of the weekend, and I saved this, guys, because we were covering the game. But John, has Billy Napier surpassed Butch Jones for the most incompetently coached Tennessee-Florida game ever? Because it's decisions on Saturday. And I'll let you guys pick. There's 3, and I'm just having fun. The first was the 4th and an inch, and he gets in shotgun. All right, that was pretty bad. The difference in the game, Billy Napier gets in shotgun on 4th and an inch near the goal line. Josh Heupel gets under center. Josh Heupel scores a touchdown. Billy Napier gets stopped. That's 1. 2, a substitution penalty trying to kick a field goal at the end of the first half.
The first thing I thought of was Caleb.
And what made it worse, Caleb, was he had used a timeout before that. So, I mean, these NFL guys can rush out there in 8 seconds and kick a field goal. They can't do that in college. And those 3 points that could have been decisive. It could have won the game for him. Yeah, you got one more. That's not all.
No, my one more
really
is Billy Napier.
Billy.
My one more, and I'll let you guys pick which one was the worst one. That's the worst one for me, but Billy Napier not going for 2 at the end of that game was honestly really, really, really stupid. Florida, I mean, you don't want to go into overtime when you're the inferior team on the road. It reminds me, John, I said this yesterday. Do you remember when Tennessee had a chance to they score a touchdown against Texas A&M under Butch Jones, and they're down by 1, and they have a chance to go for 2 and win, and Texas A&M gets an offside penalty, so it's up to the 1-yard line, and Butch Jones says, rather than go for 2, because now you only have 1 yard, he declines the penalty so he has more room for the extra point.
John, I wasn't too crazy about what do they call it? When they ship all of the offensive linemen over to the side that Billy Napier tried on he was going to run that.
The swinging, was that the swinging gate?
Swinging gate, yeah. You're going to run that on your 2-point conversion. And
I've seen Oregon pull that off. I even thought, I would have rather faked the kick. And I thought he had to go for 2 in that situation. And I'm not big on pulling off a fake extra point kick. I think that's difficult, but that would still be preferable. As Caleb said, you don't send that game into overtime. And, Florida had a chance to win that game after all had done wrong, and it'd been the better team for much of that game. But yeah, you don't go into overtime there at Neyland Stadium. That's just not going to win for you.
Nope.
You bring up a really good point, though. I think when you start making this stuff historical comparisons, when you just don't say, well, this was the dumbest coach of the week. This particular Saturday, when you go back and you bring up a Butch Jones and say, man, this was epic here. It wasn't just a dumb move of the week. It was historical.
It was the Butch Jones award.
Dumber than Butch Jones? I'd have to think about that. Let me think about that for a few weeks, and I'll get back to you on that. I don't want I don't want to pass.
Butch Jones did burn a timeout because he didn't have his field goal block team out there one time.
Okay, let me ask you this real quick. Worst haircut, Billy Napier, Butch Jones. John's appearance brought to you by Neubert Collision Center.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Worst haircut, Napier, Butch.
Oh, that's easy, Billy Napier.
See, I know it's easy, Butch, because he's got.
It's Butch.
Oh, no.
Butch has a terrible haircut. By the way, can I give because y'all think I'm so hard on coaches, can I actually give a coaching genius award this week? Just one?
You're going to give a shout out to Dan
No,
Lanning, aren't you?
no, don't do that. That hurts your image. Just let it go.
Dan Lanning running the 12-man on the field on purpose to get a penalty to run 4 seconds off the clock late in that game is one of the most genius coaching moves I've ever seen.
That rule will be changed in part because it happened against Ohio State. John, have a great day, buddy. We've kept you too long. I appreciate you as always, and we will talk to you soon.
You know, if you didn't know where I was doing this podcast, things could pass for earmuffs. I got a cap and this fleece pullover. People might think I'm outside an igloo somewhere. Just saying. See you guys.
That's what I was wondering. See you, John. I appreciate
Have a
that.
good one,
John
guys.
Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel. Yeah, that play by Landing was unbelievable. They will change that rule. If it had happened the other way around, if Ron Day would have done it, they would say, "Oh, let's just keep it." But they'll make a rule against that.
What it reminds me of is you covered the game, Dave, the Music City Bowl, where North Carolina ran 100 men onto the field to spike the ball, and there wasn't a 10-second runoff yet. It was against Tennessee and Derek Dooley. So they run like 100 guys on the field, spike the ball, and they just take the penalty so they can get the game-tying field goal out in time. And, that was Dooley was like, he lost 2 games in his first year that he celebrated winning. And then, it happened. But that was genius by Butch Davis. Whereas Les Miles, on the other hand, in the earlier game they won was just incredibly stupid. Only he was just lucky Chuck Smith was dumber.
A record number of daily viewers on the show. So be sure and hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed at this point, please do so. Turn the notification bell on as well. Show represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Looks like we're going to have Paul Feinbaum on later in the week. He will be, of course, on Tennessee's campus at Ayers Hall for SEC Nation, working on some other guests as well. And I do want to talk to Jonathan Crompton before the end of the week. We're working on that because he's faced a similar challenge that Nico is facing, and that is just really intense scrutiny because of his recruiting reputation, which, Caleb, you and I have contributed to the expectations. I certainly did when I wrote a takeout piece as my first big assignment for the News Sentinel. Went to Waynesville, North Carolina. So I was probably part of the problem then. Maybe I'm part of the problem now. So thank you so much for being a part of the program. Click that thumbs up button. Make sure your notifications are on. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.